Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petralis, and we are super excited for today's guest. I mean, I was chatting with him a little bit before we hit play here, but statistically, you might be the most impressive athlete, coach, anybody we've had on this podcast. We've had some really good of both and some awesome numbers, but these numbers are going to blow you away today. Out of Shawsheen Tech, an all-world high school wrestler, and I mean, I should say all-country high school wrestler because #2 ranked in the country. His record is insanely impressive here. I have it written down, but let me give you the numbers here because this is kind of crazy. So, you were all-scholastic wrestler as a sophomore. Keep in mind, it's a super sophomore we're talking to right here.
Yes.
Won his second straight Division I North. So it means you won it as a freshman too. Second straight Division I North, Division I State, All-State, and New England titles, boosting your career record to an incredible 132 wins and 1 loss. The 138-pound sophomore earned All-American honors. So we're not talking All-Scholastic, All-State. We're talking All-American honors by placing second in the nationals in Virginia. You're an honor student, so a good student in the classroom, and you were also an All-Scholastic in football. And we'll jump into those numbers shortly, but and we went over his last name. I'm probably gonna mess it up, but we'll see. But from Shawsheen Tech, super sophomore Sid Tildsley.
Yeah,
How's it
totally.
going? Did I get it
Good,
right?
good. Yeah, good. Yeah, that's cool.
Good.
Tough.
Well, welcome on to the podcast. We're super excited to have you on here. Obviously, I just read your wrestling statistics, which are insane. But before we jump into that, you are do you play anything in the winter?
Well, wrestling in the winter,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
that's what I mean, the spring. Sorry,
yeah,
spring.
I'm doing track right now, so I threw the jab a little.
Okay, so you're a
Yeah,
three-sport athlete. I mean,
yeah,
that's incredible. So obviously I want to dive into your football numbers here. I'm a football guy, I was a football coach, so football is always a little bit more. I tune the volume up here, but I'm gonna read to you guys. You were an all-scholastic in wrestling, but you were also an all-scholastic in football, which I find amazing that it's tough enough to become an all-scholastic in any sport, period, but to do it in 2 sports, back-to-back seasons as a sophomore is to me is incredible. So you played quarterback at Shawsheen. You threw for about 1,900 yards, 1,885, right?
Mhm.
608 rushing yards, 37 total touchdowns, and leading your team to a Division V Super Bowl. You were the Commonwealth MVP, and to add on to it, 58 tackles and 4 interceptions at safety. Holy moly, man! So I don't even know where to get started with this, but just talk a little bit about growing up. I mean, wrestling and football, obviously different seasons. Did you do both growing up? Was this something more you picked? I'm guessing wrestling was probably more the youth and maybe football you played as a youth, or maybe you just picked it up in high school. But talk a little bit about your childhood that led you to where we are right now.
yeah. So definitely, my dad. I mean, I was born right into wrestling, and I was born right into football, so I knew that wrestling was a big thing. So my first ever tournament, I was 6 years old. It was at some sort of just a little kid tournament. I wrestled in that. I fell in love with it, and I was in a singlet since I was 2 years old. So always wrestling, and I did Berwick Pop Warner on the F team. So I've been doing wrestling for almost 14 years now, and I'm playing football for almost 12. So I do equally just amount. So I play sports all year. So out of the 12, probably I do 6 or 7 wrestling, maybe 8, and then I do 4 for football. So I usually do wrestling from the Monday after Thanksgiving. I grind all the way to around like right now or like a month from now, and then I just grind football. So it's like an off and on thing, which is cool. And my dad's obviously one of my even not even a father, just a coach too. He's just one of my biggest influences on on those sports, because he played them himself. He was a 5 year wrestler at UMass Lowell.
Oh wow! Did he go to Shawsheen too?
No, he went to Wilmington. His brothers went to Shawsheen. My uncles are Jay Tildsley and Kevin Tildsley.
Okay. Wow, okay, so you guys are like just a really athletic family in general, and obviously, yeah, you've been doing it since young. And Bill Ricka, Pop Warner, I mean, is legit. I mean,
Yeah,
I played a few softball games down there for random teams, and like those
yeah.
coaches go hard,
They
man, with
they
those
go
younger
wild. Yeah,
kids.
that's like a community. People are like, we got a board and everything. Presidency, it's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and that's great. And that's
yeah,
why you see the football program at the high
yeah,
school is always Bill Rick is not a team that's always, top in the state, but you're playing Bill Rick on a Friday night. It's a
Yeah, that's a
tough
good thing.
physical football game, and you go in and play at their place, it's even that much tougher. But you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a well-coached team that is tough and physical year in and year out. So,
Yeah, definitely.
that starts at the youth program for sure. So obviously you go to Shawsheen. I used to coach out at Catholic for a very long time. So very friendly rivalry. I think over 20 plus years, Coach Costable is one of the nicest human beings, maybe literally walking on this planet Earth. Like such a nice guy.
He's
I
the
mean,
man.
there's some cool stories about him, especially when he was coaching the early 2010s, 2015s. That they went to the Super Bowl. Shawsheen went to the Super Bowl, and I think his daughter got married or something like that the same
Yeah.
day as a Super Bowl. He had a like incredible story. I
Wow.
mean,
Yeah,
incredible story.
he's the man.
But obviously you're a sophomore, super sophomore. You play quarterback, the most important position on the field in a lot of senses as far as your offense go. Everything goes through you. The spread is obviously when I used to coach against Shawsheen, you guys were under center a lot. You ran
Mm,
I maybe with the wing. You ran some, under center, too wide on each side. But
yeah,
over the last, I'd say like 4 or 5 years, you guys have definitely gone more true spread. I know we played some pistol and stuff like that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you guys definitely have evolved your offense, and obviously you got athletes all over the field, and you're leading that. So talk about playing the quarterback position there, and just how successful you guys were this year. You guys were one game away from taking it all.
Yeah, so we're definitely so as of this year, we're very junior heavy. We have almost over 30 juniors that are gonna be pretty legit. Our almost all of our team is made up of juniors. So I'm a super senior, so those are all my guys in Pop Warner. I was all with them. We made it to Eastern Match Championships, all that. So those are all my guys. And
Yeah.
a bunch of Barika people, we they didn't end up going to high school. They ended up going to tech. So I considered myself. I was like, I got to go to tech now. And plus, wrestling was good. And also, Coach Donovan was just on the verge of. We didn't know if I was going to get a year with him or not. And then he ended up passing like a couple months before we got there. But he ended up coming to one of our football games. And my freshman year was more not a struggle, but I think we went 6-5. And it was a tough year. Our seniors, we only had like a couple seniors. Our juniors were like still getting the hang of it. And all of us, we were only sophomores. I was a freshman. I didn't know if I was going to start quarterback or not. We had this kid Maverick Bordeaux, who was my wide receiver this year, who's just a great all around athlete. He's playing D2 baseball. He's a very good athlete, and we didn't know my freshman year if I was going to play quarterback or not. So the first game we played Bedford, we got smoked, and I played wide receiver that game.
I
And
mean,
then the next
Bedford's
game,
no joke. I mean,
yeah,
Bedford's,
Bedford
oh, yeah,
was
they're
very good
good.
that year. They had that kid Miles, the quarterback.
Yep.
They were very good. They just ran hurry up that big middle linebacker. So they were a handful. They smashed us. And then we played Whittier, and me and Maverick just started like every down we would switch. It would kind of be like a preseason game where you would switch off. And then so like the final drive, we were losing by 5, and I ended up like scoring, and we ended up winning the game. So
Yeah.
then from then on, I kind of just catched on, and Maverick moved to wide receiver, and I stayed. So we ended up finishing the season 6-5, pretty good. And then this season we were like hoping to maybe just win CACs because we didn't even win CACs. We lost to I think 2 of our CAC. So we were just struggling trying to even maybe win state vote. So we really over exceeded this year with more than we thought we would. So once we got the hang of it, I mean, we weren't expecting to beat Bedford this year. They had a pretty good team,
Yeah.
really big line. So we ended up beating them in the sun the first game. Like a last second pick, Ryan Cobson had an interception to seal it, and then we just pretty much rolled from then on. And we kind of just we were not scared to lose, but more we had a swagger like going in. So we were the I think we were the 3 seed, or no, we were the 4 seed. So we played
Yeah. Yeah.
Derby Sherborne in the semis, and then North Reading and Bishop Fenwick on the other side. So Bishop Fenwick was a very big
Yeah.
smash mouth team, and then North Reading was also kind of like a Bedford last year, but they all had like a million seniors, and
They
so
had like a
that
freshman
journey,
running back too that was like pretty
yeah,
good,
yeah,
right?
he was good. And their
Yeah.
senior, they graduate everybody, but that
Yeah.
quarterback Carucci was very good. They were a
Yeah.
tough handle. And then so this year we kind of just I think just clicked. I had Maverick at wide receiver. We had a freshman though come in and he broke his collarbone the second game of the season. So we were down, but we still found a way to plug some people in, and we kind of just chugged through, and we ended up getting the Super Bowl, which no one ever thought we would. No one
Yeah,
really
and I watched you guys on TV, and once I saw that you were number 12, I was like, "Holy moly." Like, I
yeah,
remember you made some plays that game, some big runs or broke some tackles, made some
yeah,
nice throws. Like, yeah, you had a game.
yeah.
And if I remember, you guys were kind of down early on, and then you guys started like putting it on, like offensively, just really started clicking. I felt like if I,
Yeah, I think the first half, we were winning 14-7. I had, like, a long throw, the DB tripped, and I put it right in the bucket, we scored,
yep,
and then they scored with no time left at half, and it kinda was like, "Oh, it's
yeah,
14-14." And then so they came out right at the gates, and they found, like, their trap game going. Um, and they just kinda gassed us on the run game because we were so worried about they had very good screens, good long ball, so we were, like, trying to keep them from throwing the ball, and the QB was a very good runner, and so by
yeah,
the time we only ran a three-man front, they would just trap our guys, but
yeah.
that was a good game, it was a very good game.
Yeah, getting hit with trap. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I used to run a
it was
3-4,
just
so we'd always be
yeah,
like trap. Yeah, and you guys, I mean, I remember playing you guys. You guys ran trap a lot against us
yeah,
too. Like when you
yeah,
guys, yeah,
guard tackle trap, yeah.
yeah. So that's great. Obviously, great experience. And as a quarterback, when did you start maybe feeling comfortable? Because obviously, I just read your numbers. I mean, obviously, you had yourself a year, but you won that first game against Bedford after maybe, the year before you guys, kind of got beat up by them coming in. It's your opening day. Your team feels a little different, but still, you're going against a team that you know is pretty good. When did things start clicking for you? I mean, did they start clicking right out the gate, or do you remember a time in your season at QB that things just started slowing down for you, or maybe you just started processing things just so much quicker?
Yeah, believe it or not, it was my freshman year Thanksgiving game.
Okay.
I threw 4 interceptions in the first half, 4. It was against Arlington Catholic.
Yeah,
Very bad
yeah.
game, very windy, and I was just so frustrated, and then the second half, we were tied up, I think it was 14-14. I just ripped it up in the second half. I just, like, found my rhythm, I was, playing D pretty good, and then, like, I was like, "I need to take more advantage next year." So we were playing 7-on-7s, we went to Tewksbury, we lost to Methuen in the finals, very good D1 team.
Yep.
They're legit. They have, Shane Eason, the Eason brothers, they're the
Yep.
senior quarterback, so they were good, and I think I just finally that it was that game, and then I think the Bedford game. I was just
Yeah.
like in the zone. We would drive down red zone. They would just give me the ball, and I just find some spots to throw it in there. And I just felt like I could take control more than last year because I was a little bit older. People actually like respected me on the team rather than being like, oh, it's freshman and my dad coached. People there used to be like rumors of my dad was a coach, that's why I started and stuff. So I kind
Yeah.
of just cracked all that, and I just like showed 'em what I could do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a mentality too, and you have it. And before we jump into wrestling, because to me it's so interesting, right? Because talk about two sports that maybe you're getting juiced up for in different ways, right? I mean, obviously you're going to get individuals who are juiced up in football, but it's also about the team and 11 people on the field and everybody communicating and everybody doing things that they're supposed to and doing your job, that cliche saying, but that's what it is, right? But wrestling is such an
Yeah,
individual mentality. So for you, mentally, I asked this question more mentally. What's the big change, if any? What's the big change for you going from football season to now wrestling season, in which you really got to get yourself kind of juiced up and only you?
yeah. I think it's definitely we call it football shape and wrestling shape, mentally and physically. So my football is just I'm on a team, and the second we call it Monday after Thanksgiving is when the winter season starts.
Mhm.
So the second that first practice, you flip the switch. It's you. It's all you. So it's basically your own battle mentally the whole time. And you can say in the Super Bowl, I could blame my alignment or I could blame my wide receivers for dropping the ball. But when I go out on the mat and I shake that kid's hand, I can only blame myself for if I lose or if I win or if I do something bad. So I think it's a totally different mindset, and wrestling is 1,000 times harder than football, way harder. And I think I know that. And people say that you get burnt out in wrestling, but it's a very long season. It's very hard. So by the time people get to the postseason, they just want to check out, and a lot of
Well,
seniors
that's
check
so
out.
interesting you say that, because when I looked at your record and it was like 132 in 2 years, I'm
Yeah,
like, dear Lord, like
yeah.
that's, 66 matches you're averaging a year. I mean, how much of those matches are say just your regular season, like league matchups, team high schools that you typically go against versus when you now start competing maybe as a team for states and obviously individual and all how all that goes for you?
Yeah, so freshman year I finished 60-0. So I had 60 matches in high school, not counting nationals. So counting nationals, I went 64-2. So my freshman year, I went 64-2, and I took seventh at nationals as a freshman. And then so this year, I lost once, my first ever New England loss in high school, and then I won 74, I think. And then so I was plus 5-1, no 4-1. So I would be 79-2 at the end of the season. And then if you count, I just finished over 80 matches this year. So it's definitely a big toll, and I'm taking a break for a little bit because I need to focus on now getting back into football because this is going to be my biggest season. All my boys are seniors. I'm going to be a junior. I mean, I got to step it up this year and hopefully take that title this year. But I think I've done my duties. I did what I had to do. Like, I accomplished my goals for this year, obviously, except for winning that national title. But second, I mean, being a finalist is everything I could ever ask for. But definitely having those 80 matches, just like, all right, I think I did enough for this year.
Now 80 matches over how many like over
Over
what
since
timetable?
December to this weekend.
Damn. Okay. So that's a lot, man. That's a
It's
lot of
almost
matches.
it's wrestling every weekend, if not maybe 2 or 3 a week.
Oof.
Yeah,
So that's
so
a grind, man. That's an
yeah,
absolute grind.
very.
I mean, so I'm going to ask you kind of like a silly question off of this, but so were you like WWE fan growing up or anything like that? Did you watch wrestling as a kid? Do you still watch wrestling at all?
So my dad, when he was a kid, he always used to watch it. So I never really got into like the newer stuff, but I obviously know about Hulk Hogan and all of them. So we used to, when we were little, we would like play around. But it was also like sometimes when I was little, I would like take offense to it. So people would be, I would go to like my third grade class. People like, oh, you wrestle? I'm like, yeah. Like I'd be proud of it, and then they'd be like, so it's like fake, right? And I'm like, no, 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 not
No, this
that type of
isn't,
wrestling.
yeah.
So it was almost like I would like butt heads with it, but I actually liked it, like the Hulk Hogan and everything, Andre the Giant,
Yeah.
all that, Booker T and all them. So
Yeah, see, okay, so you're like, yeah, like NW, all that stuff. Because when we
yeah,
first, when and I forget how someone threw me your name. I looked you up. I found you on Instagram. I think you were wrestling that day for nationals, and I threw on like a Stone Cold Steve Austin,
yeah,
like
yeah. I saw that
because
too.
I get it's two completely different things. I just think. Like we talked about at the beginning, like it's such a mentality to like come out and intimidate somebody. I mean, and I no disrespect to a lot of opponents, but you must destroy some people, right? Like some kids must stand, and you could be as like I know you don't necessarily want to say that, but like I'm
No,
sure
yeah,
when
yeah,
the competition gets tougher, it's obviously yes, but I'm sure there are some matchups that you have that you're just trying different things or trying different moves or trying different leverages of your body. I mean, for you, how do you get like juiced up for a match? Like when a kid looks you in the eyes, like they're like, I'm wrestling Sid. Like I'm like that's what must be going through their mind. Like you're going to get everyone's A game. You're going to get everyone's uppercut. You're going to get everyone's best punch because they want to match up against you and they want to beat you, right? So you're going to get their A game. So how do you prepare for this stuff when you go match the match and you know who you're facing?
yeah. I mean, definitely, it's almost like kind of like a defense game. So people we call it game planning. So if I'm wrestling someone who won nationals like 3 years in a row, right? I want to be like, I'm gonna take it to this kid and try not to get pinned, or I'm gonna take it to this kid and try not to lose by 5 points. So when I'll go and wrestle someone that's lesser than me, maybe it will be just they'll try to just not lose by much and like maybe try to get something on me. So it's almost like I'm in a lose-lose situation because if I lose, it's the big news now. But if I win, who cares, you know?
Right. Right.
So it's tough, but I just flip the switch and I just take care of business. That's what we call it. Just take care of business. I don't like to play with my food and I want to be as humble as possible. I just take care of business.
So talk about it. Like I'm thinking, like mentally, you line up across from somebody. I've seen some real cool high school wrestling stuff this year in Massachusetts. That the fans are going nuts, the wrestlers are going nuts, the coaches are going nuts. Coach, I saw a person like suplex his coach like onto the ground. They were like
Yeah.
so excited. I mean, talk about like you lining up across from somebody and just kind of the mental state you get into. Like, are you staring them down? Are you getting fired up? Are you like, how are you?
Yeah, I definitely just I really love the pressure itself. So those big stage moments when I remember we would go to Madison Square Garden when I was like maybe 10 years old, wrestle there. We'd go everywhere, Penn State College, everywhere. So nowadays when I'm in high school and I'm in all state finals, New England finals, but it's like we've been here before. We've been here before. So I kind of just calms my nerves and I'm just like I like getting pumped up and I like being in that moment. I mean, freshman year, I wrestled this kid, Adam Shawblin. He's at Trinity College right now. I wrestled him 6 times in 1 year. And I wrestled him in a dual meet. I wrestled him in the low holiday finals, the sectional finals, the state finals, the all state finals, and the New England finals. And I had to beat him 6 times. The first time it was 2-1, second time it was 5-2, third time it was 3-2, fourth time it was 4-3. At all states it was triple overtime. And then New England's I beat him 2-1.
I mean,
So
talk about that dude must have been like,
that
I
pressure
cannot beat this
itself
guy.
that pressure itself, I mean, every time it would just get harder because it's pretty much like if you spar with someone in boxing, you're gonna know what they punch and their favorite punches and what they do and know their feet, know their footwork. So by that sixth match, I'm just like, I feel like I'm just sparring with this kid because we know everything we do. So I'm trying to change my game plan. He's changing his game plan, and it's just like such a low scoring match because like where it's almost like a dance. Like you already know what he's gonna do. So that pressure, obviously, to try to finish that undefeated season is just crazy. I was 59-0, trying to make that 60 mark, being the first ever freshman in Massachusetts history to go undefeated and win New England's is just like that pressure itself, like was just like felt like the whole building was on me. But that relief after I raised my hand was just like the best feeling in the world. So
I mean, dude, you're a pretty mentally tough kid. I mean,
yeah.
to take on someone. So when you went in as a freshman, I mean, did you know you were the real deal? Like in the sense, like, did you know that you were a good wrestler, that you could match up against an 18-year-old kid? Like, did you feel that you could do that? Or was this kind of the coaching, the
Yeah, so
training, all of it?
I definitely my 8th grade year, I was, like, wrestling in some because my 8th grade year was COVID. So, I would wrestle in some high school tournaments that I could get to, and I would s test my match, but coming into freshman year, I wasn't really, like, being like, "Yeah, I can win New England's," honestly, truthfully. We
Mhm.
weren't like, "I can win New England's," and I wasn't really, like, planning on winning all states. But that first tournament, I went to the Salem Blue Devil tournament, Salem, New Hampshire. I wrestled this kid from Springfield, and I ended up, like, taking it to this kid. He was, like, a pretty good junior. He was, like, respected name, and I ended up pinning him in the finals. And I was like, "Alright, like, let's keep this rolling," and I ended up
Yeah.
going, and then, like, we went to that St. John's Prep Duel, that the Chaublin kid who I wrestled 6 times, it was the first time I wrestled him, we were like, "Yeah, you're gonna have the number 1 kid in New England, like, in this duel." And I'm like, "Alright, let's" like, I'm trying to get ready for this. And then I ended up beating him, and I'm like, "Alright, like, let's finish this, like, I can do
Yeah.
this, actually." And, like, also my coaches definitely were, like, getting on me, like, they would kinda realize too that I actually had a chance to like if I the more harder I worked, I mean, we would run every day, like 3 miles. I would do after practice stuff, lifts, everything. I
So
had
let me
s
ask you that while you're talking about that, because I was going to ask you that literally next. Talk about your training because obviously you're weight cutting, which is difficult in itself. But you mentioned boxing and sparring. I mean, are you kind of doing a lot of different things, weightlifting, running? Like, do you do some sparring and boxing for foot movement and body? I mean, what is it that you do that you're 132 and one, dude? So I want to know, like, what is it that you do to prepare that you are just superior in a sense to a lot of people that you go against?
yeah, I definitely our Shawsheen Tech room is kinda just, like, known for hard work, and then we do, like, during practices, we bring Tewksbury in, Chelmsford in, and it's always like a barn we call it a barn burner. It's just, like, tough practice, so we
Tough
usually
towns, tough
yeah.
kids. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we kinda just open it up with a run, a nice run, then we do a warm we call it spin, so it's 3 minutes of someone's down and you circle around them with your chest on them over and over, you sweat, 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 and that's our first warm up, and then we do a bunch of conditioning at the beginning, and we grind wrestling, and then we end it off with a run. So that's just practice itself, and then we do lifts after, and then Sundays we do 5 mile runs. We come in like early in the morning, and we'll do our 5 mile run. We have a route that we do out in the roads, and then for nationals training, I would do 3 miles every day, and then I would do a 5 mile to finish it off, like towards the end of the nationals training. I mean, I even have a mat at my house. My basement is macked out. I have a mats all over the ground, mats on the walls. I have like an unfinished basement that I have. We
That's
got a
unreal.
speaker, bench. I have a steam room down there, punching bag. I got the ropes where you can
So you
do.
don't need to go anywhere. You literally just go in
Yeah,
your basement.
I got everything down there. So thanks to my dad, we just have that environment where we can just grind anytime. I can go down there and get a lift. I mean, I have Planet Fitness right by my house, so I usually in the summer, um, my dad he used to. You ever seen the Rocky where he pulls the bike?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so one summer we would every day we would get up, and I have a cemetery by my house. It's called Foxdale Cemetery, and there's a bunch of hills on it. So what we do is run from my house, and you'd run to the cemetery. And I had this little fishing vest I had when I was a little kid, and I'd zip it up, and he'd hook it to the back, and he'd get on this really crappy bike. My dad would, and I would have to pull him. I would run about a mile up to the cemetery, and then there was this wicked long big hill, and I'd go and I had to pull him up. He'd yell at me, music. He'd be yelling, and I would have to get all the way up to the top of the hill, and I would do my sets. I'd do push-ups, sit-ups, dips, and then he'd let me loose, and I'd run home with no bike, so like a cool off. And then I'd get home, and I'd go in the steam room, and you'd steam it out, and then you'd go and get a couple of supersets, a couple curls, and then I'd be done for the day. I'd rest, you know. So I would grind, and then I would still rest. Like I'm not like really a slave to the sport. I can
Yeah.
grind, and I know when to turn that switch on, but then I can be normal and hang with my buddies and stuff. So I like the balance, and I like the grind, and even in football seasons, like I'll miss it. I miss the grind, and right now like I've been grinding for so long that I like the rest, but also like I went and got a lift today. I made sure I got my lift in today. I made sure I got my workout in. So you always have to keep on it, and I just don't really. I don't. I always miss it when I just don't really what's the word? I don't really want to stop. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I
Yeah,
like the
you just yeah, I mean, you are interesting. You are really interesting. Like you mentioned like stuff that you do outside of sport, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But the one thing I want to kind of focus on here is just that national championship matchup for you. I mean, talk about the experience. Obviously, from what I read, I think you wrestled the number one ranked wrestler in the world, like I mean the country for that weight class. So obviously you went into that matchup and you have no fear. I mean, clearly you're mentally tough. You go into that. I mean, everybody plays Monday morning quarterback, and I'm sure you've watched a film on it or parts of the match that you could wish you could take back or something you wish that you did or whatever. I mean, talk about that whole experience just in general, and then obviously what you want to say about your matchup, but just highly impressive.
Yeah, nationals itself was just a great tournament that we always go to, and I mean, it's just like all that work you put in is just like, all right, this is it. Like this is your last that's my last tournament with the my high school Shawsheen. So I'm just like, this is it. You got to finish it off. So I started my first match. I really didn't feel good. So what I did was I went 126.
Okay.
So 126, the allowance is 129. So I'd have to weigh in 129.0 or below. And what I was walking around at was 145. I'm walking around at 145 pounds, and I'm like, really, 132 is really stacked. And I feel like if I go 138, people are going to be cutting like I would, and I would be like a size difference. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to cut to 129. So I started 2 weeks before. I got my calories down, got my body fat down, and I just made the cut. And by the time I was like at 133, I was like, I think I can make this. And I was like wicked sucked out. But by the time I got there, I ended up weighing like 128.4. I made it. And then I went and got a liquid IV right away. So what a liquid IV is you sit in a chair and they stick you, and you just get this like 4 pound bag full of all nutrients, vitamins, everything. So it was just like I got sucked right back up. I felt like $1,000,000.
Yeah.
But that next day, like that first match, I was just like, oh my God, it just hit me. I was like lactic acid like all through my body. I ended up hanging on beating the kid. I was like, dude, like I didn't think like I thought that vitamin stuff would work. And I was
Right.
like, and then I just started like having a couple of Gatorades. I would like have some peanut butter. You'd do like peanut butter on a spoon and eat it. So then I was just like, all right, I think I got it out of me. So the next match I came out with Masticated. Next match came out with Masticated. I got that swagger back
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was nervous, but I came out. And then the next day I had a kid in the quarters, very good wrestler from one of the most respected St. Edwards. It's from I think they're in PA. Very good high school. I ended up upsetting him, beat him. Um, what we always did at the end, my dad would be like, "Yeah, Massachusetts, Massachusetts," because like no one
No
expects
one.
a
Yeah.
Mass kid to ever win. So I ended up
Yeah.
beating that kid, and I ended up in the semis. Kid Manuel Salde, his brother wrestled for Michigan State, very good wrestler. He's from Las Vegas, Nevada. So I wrestled him. He was the one. He was number one. No, Billy was. So he was the number 2 seed. I beat him. I think it was 7-4. So I ended up upsetting him, and then I kind of was just like, I just need to get to the finals because I didn't want. If we go to the semis, you lose. If you lose in the semis, you have to wrestle like maybe 3 more matches, and I was like, I
Yeah.
just don't want to wrestle 3 more matches. Maybe go for fifth or third. Like I just want to win this, and I gave everything. So I ended
Yeah.
up beating him. So now I have a whole night just to wrestle one match on that Sunday. So I got my mind right, and I was like, this kid's very legit. Like I'm just gonna go out and like be like we call it being stingy. So it's just like not giving up wicked easy takedowns, anything like that. So it'd be like if you're a defense and you'd be like, all right, this offense very good. Let's just play it safe. Like we're gonna be stingy and not give up big yards, right? So I go out and I'm like playing stingy, and this kid's like he's really we call it square stance. So he's very just defensive and he's just a big boy, like act. So I go out, it's 0-0. I'm hanging in there, hanging in there. I ended up going up 1-0. I escaped from bottom, and then I shot, and he just like he did we call it a quarter Nelson. So I shot, and he puts his hand in the back of my head, and he gets like an overhook, and he grabs his own hand, and he pushes my neck down. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I just hear like I just feel a tear in the back of my neck, and I'm like, oh, it's not gonna feel good. So he ended up taking me down after that, and then it was 2-1, and I was like, I got up and I just gave it everything I have, and ended up giving a takedown at the end. But I mean, it was just a great opportunity to even be out on that stage like that, and
Right.
especially for Massachusetts, that's like pretty much all I've ever dreamed of is just being on those stages like that. And I mean, it was just a great opportunity itself. I wasn't even mad after. I was just like, we're right there. Like I'm almost on that level with those kids. I mean, that kid's from Blair Academy, and his whole life is wrestling.
I was just gonna say, how many of these kids are just wrestling year
Yeah,
round,
they
nonstop, where
just
you're
wrestle you
playing?
around, and
Yeah.
I feel like if I quit football right now and I moved to Lake Highland Plep in Florida and I wrestled 365 days a year, I could be on that level. But I feel like I just don't want to do that. Like I don't want to sacrifice my life to do that rather than being playing the other sport that I love. I love playing football. I
But
even
you
love
are at that level, right? I mean, I'd
yeah.
argue you
I
are,
mean,
right?
I'm at that level, but I'm at like there's these guys who are just like this much, like this much.
Yeah.
So I'm at the level, but I'm not at the level where I can beat those guys. It's hard to believe, but there's that second level where it's just like it comes so natural. It's
Yeah.
just all they do. They're slaves to the sport, slaves to the sport.
Yeah.
And I just like if I quit football, I would be just as good as those kids.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I'm not like what I'm trying to say is just if I quit, then I could be like that. But I
Right.
rather not be like that rather than quitting because I don't want to have to be. Some kids are like homeschooled and they'll
Right.
wrestle 7 hours a day and
Yeah.
just grind and grind and grind. And I just feel like that's not how I should live my life.
Yeah.
And my dad talks about that, and we're like, I'm not shitting on anybody who does that, but
Yeah.
it's just totally that's how my perspective is, and I rather just live my life than do something like
Yeah, and I think and truthfully, I think I mean, there's always that debate of like people who just play one sport year round versus those that play multiple sports, right? And the argument is, and I always say this is like football is also preparing you mentally and putting you in those tough situations when you are tired and you are sore and you feel like giving up and you are in those situations in wrestling. And sometimes the leadership style or things that you pick up from other people or teammates in another sport, and you get put in those mentally tough positions, you're able to deal with that more. And sometimes that's more important than the physical aspect of the sport that you play because you got to be like like you are. I mean, at a high school kid, you're an elite mentally tough kid, like elite mentally tough kid. And mental toughness is something in any sport you just can't coach. And when you have that, and that's a skill that you have that you possess, and on top of it, you work hard and you grind and you want to put the work in and get better. I think you sometimes learn that from playing multiple sports versus just locking in all day, every day on the same thing over and over. So I agree with you. And like you said, I get what you mean, that next level of just being a little bit quicker, a little bit stronger, a little bit more fundamentally sound or whatever it is that you see differently in wrestling. But you are there. Don't sell yourself short there either because you were a win away from being a national champion. So you are there and you're doing it your way. So don't shy away from that. Is there a song that like gets you juiced up? Like if you're listening to it right before a match, like is there a certain song you put on, you kind of wide open the music, or is there a song that really just locks you in?
that. I have this little playlist that I have. It's just like a bunch of the I like Dr. Dre, all that old stuff, like Forgot About Dre. Anything with like that beat is just
Yeah.
focuses me, and I get in the zone. I do use music. Some people there's different stuff. Some people like slap themselves, get like all angry. Some people use music. Some people just like sit down and maybe like meditate and stretch. Some people like bounce around and do like cartwheels and stuff. Everybody has their own like warm up routine. I do use music. I have my AirPods in always, and I in like when we do this thing where in the finals you go out and they announce you go Sid Tildsley from Shawsheen versus so and so from wherever, and then you go out and shake hands. So and that's like a long process. I have my headphones in, you know, and I do like all that like old rap and stuff. I like
Yeah,
the old
there we go, man. So you're right on my level. That's the stuff I would always listen to too. It's something about it, whether it's just the instrumental or just the
yeah
lyrics itself. It's just something about it that gets you a little bit more juiced up or it gets you a
yeah.
little bit more locked in. I
I
get
think
it.
my definitely top is Victory by
Oh my
Puff
god, the
Daddy.
BIG. Yeah, oh yeah, dude. And like bone, I think it's like a
That's
bunch
what
of artists.
that's when we
Yeah.
come out in football. That's when we come out to.
Yeah, it's like let's ride, let's ride. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude. Yeah. It's a great song. I mean,
yeah,
I used to work out to that song. Yeah, absolutely. That's cool that high school kids are still coming out to that music.
yeah.
That's
It's
really
cool.
awesome. Are you like you must be an incredible form tackler in football then? Like I'm
Yeah,
guessing so coaches must just have you go out and show tackling drills sometimes because you were probably
that's yeah.
so good at it.
That's really what happens. So out of 14 starters, we have 11 kids that wrestle. So our coaches, my offensive coordinator is our head coach, Doug Pratt.
Hmm.
He was my Pop Warner coach. Him and my dad are very good friends. So we praise if you don't do anything in winter, you're coming out to wrestling. Like it wrestling helps football as well as football helps wrestling. So there is that form like on the tackling day you have to do like however many things without tackling, and then you have like those that day
Right.
where you teach everybody. So we do
It's
like
like
it's
track
just like
practice. Yeah.
pretend. Yeah, pretty much. It's like pretend like you're just doing a double A. So that wrestling does come in with that form. So
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I could see you just being especially like below the knees to ankles guy where sometimes they tell you
yeah,
not to
yeah,
tackle like that. Like I could see you coming up as a safety and just like a back making a move or someone runs a quick bubble of jailbreak and open field, you're able to wrap up their knees or ankles and take them down. I'm sure you're very good at that.
yeah. We do we follow the Seahawks. So the Seahawks we always like their
Yeah.
defense. Like they're very like ball hawks and just like you're either high tackles over the shoulders or you're like
Yeah.
one like dive bomb into the ankles rolling.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
could
what
see
we've
that. I could definitely see that. Yeah, and I feel like they put form tackling on the map, especially that secondary, how good they were
Yeah.
coming up and making plays. Um, so you mentioned obviously a little bit ago that like you right now, like you are taking a break from wrestling. Like it is mentally draining, can be physically draining, and you know you're doing track, you know, you said football workouts, things like that. But what do you do outside of sports? Like what type of kid are you? Like what are you interested in? Maybe even some things that people don't know that you're super interested in that you do participate in or show interest in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sports is like my whole life, but
Yeah.
I was let me think. I hang out with my girlfriend a lot. I love my girlfriend,
There you go. Okay.
but she comes to everything pretty much. So she's one of my biggest supporters. Um, I was big into Rubik's cubes. I used to be able to solve Rubik's cubes, so I could do
Yeah.
that pretty fast. Um, I mean, just
Well,
sports,
like
dude.
you're an honor student too, right?
Yeah,
So is
honors.
there
So
like a certain subject you're into or like I mean, I had a guest on here once
I
that was
do have
super into
like,
writing. Yeah.
yeah, I do. I actually have to do a lot of schoolwork after school and stuff. So I try to. I'm honestly like I'm trying to go Ivy League definitely, and something like Harvard would honestly be like a dream. So, and I think one of my dream jobs is to become like a lawyer and become like a sports agent. And if I become a sports agent, I have that background to be able to like be like, dude, I know you. Like I played football and I wrestled. Like I played and like I wrestled for Harvard. Like I
Mhm.
know. So like if I end up being like a sports agent for like someone like Jalen Hurts, like see that lady who made like 10 million off Jalen Hurts' new deal. It was like he had an
Yeah.
all woman uh
Agent, right? Or she has
yeah,
an
all woman.
agency.
And
Yeah.
she was like, yeah, like she was nothing for what, 5 years ago?
Right.
And now she's making 10 million with Jalen Hurts. So I think the opportunities are just endless. Like, and I just like I can see my future. I'm doing everything I can. Like, I don't drink, smoke, none of that. Like, I'm just like focused on what I have to do, and I can like I don't need to do that right now. Like, I just have my whole life ahead of me, and just I just need to do what I need to do become successful. I rather go to school and be broke till I'm 35 and be rich my whole life. You know what I mean? Like I'd
Yeah.
rather be on that grind, and have it all pay out. I really follow David Goggins. I like him a lot. I have
Okay.
his book and stuff, but he's really motivational. It's just like that mental game. It's just like you're it's just like you're fighting yourself. Like your body doesn't want you to do it, but like you know that it's just hard. That's why you want to do it. So
I mean,
I
one of the
really
coolest things in the world is just being different, right? And that's like just listening to and hearing you like high school kids are in high school and they're doing high school kid things. And as adults, we know what high school things are. High school kids know what high school things are. But to be different and not do that and to realize like I see what I want. Like you want to go to Harvard, you want to wrestle in college, you want to be great, you want to be able to be successful. So like you see it right now, big picture. And sometimes seeing things big picture means in the small picture or the current picture, you're cutting things out that just aren't going to help you get there. Right. And I think that, again, it comes back to your mental toughness, but that maturity level of you being locked in and understanding what's important for you as far as your future goes. So I think that's great to hear from you. And obviously, you got a bright future ahead. I mean, for you as a sophomore, have you been hearing from a lot of schools? I mean, obviously football's probably a little different, but as far as wrestling goes, have you been getting those reach outs? Like you mentioned Harvard. Has Harvard reached out at all? I mean, is that legit or
yeah, I'm not really supposed to say anything because
gotcha?
technically they haven't really released anything because I'm not allowed to. They're not allowed to reach out to me,
Right.
but until I think it's like June 17th or whenever I graduate. So the
Okay.
second I graduate sophomore year, I can get these texts and everything. So no one has really looked out anything like
Hmm.
legally.
Right, right,
So
right.
this is not really supposed to be released or anything.
Yeah,
But hopefully when I get those texts, you know what I mean? Like hopefully when I go. And
yeah,
I think some of these schools are going to, I hope. I
yeah,
mean, they a bunch of college coaches were at nationals and they were looking, but they can't
yeah,
come up to me, they can't talk to me, anything. But
yeah.
they can contact my coaches and stuff. So but
Yeah. All right, we won't talk about anything. Let's not
Yeah,
say anything we're not supposed
yeah.
to say. Let's
Can't
get
really do
away
that.
from it. But that's good. That's great to hear that
Yeah, yeah,
obviously there's a level of interest and
yeah,
drawn towards you, and that's great. And hopefully that June 17th, I'll touch back out to you because I am really curious. And my biggest piece of advice to you that I've given athletes, and obviously this is a much higher scale than maybe kids that I've dealt with, but make sure you're choosing the right school for you beyond what you're doing. If you ever get hurt and couldn't do that again, are you in the right place to then kind of fulfill that next part of your life or the future that you do see for yourself? So, that'd be my advice to you
yeah,
when you're looking at those schools for sure. Now, I asked this question to all athletes that are on here, and I'll ask this to you too. And you're a young kid, so you could even be speaking to these younger kids when I ask this question. But what is your advice to young athletes, seventh, eighth, ninth graders out there? Middle school has now it's always junior high school, whatever, right? That's what it used to be called. But in a sense, like I see more eighth graders playing on freshman teams or getting waivers to play at the high school level. You're seeing younger kids then being able to come in as freshmen, like you had yourself, and being able to effectively or immediately have an impact on their varsity program. What's your advice to young kids out there that, want to become that or want to be that? What should they be doing or what should they be thinking?
yeah. Definitely, you just have to be confident. I mean, you can't just waste those years because before we know it, you're gonna be graduated and you're gonna be looking back thinking like, damn, like freshman year, I could have like maybe had a couple of snaps on varsity. Sophomore year, maybe I could have had a couple snaps on varsity. So if you're in eighth grade and you waver into that freshman like team, like do what you can to make your impact so that if not that year, then the next year and beyond the coaches, beyond the coaches. Be like, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. And they're gonna notice you. They're not gonna just push you off. Rather if you're on the sideline talking to your buddies, like you're
Right.
not gonna get that playing time that you want. Even if you don't want it, then why are you even doing it, you know? So when you go, have that confidence and have that believing in yourself where like I'm good enough to be here. Because if you're getting that waiver to be on that freshman team, like you better be good enough and like you gotta have that confidence to just be yourself and just like be like, I know that I can hang with all these dudes. And that's what I did freshman year. And I was like, I have to like just focus on like not being in like seniority. Like I'm not gonna bow down to all these seniors and like I even got like a couple scraps from my own team. Like you just gotta
Right.
have that dog in you and just like be like, I ain't taking no crap from no one. You know?
Yeah. Man, you'd be a fun kid to coach in football. Holy moly. But I appreciate you coming on here today. I know you have a super busy schedule. We've been trying to make this work for a few weeks, and I'm glad that we were able to. We have Beyond All Stars, man, and I'd love to chat with you after about being one of our All Stars. We highlight you all over social media, any clips or anything you send us, but you're exactly like what we would want representing our brand, and obviously you're exactly what we would want to promote out in the high school sports world because I think you got a good head on your shoulders, man, and sky's the limit for you. Just keep grinding and doing the things that you know you need to do, and people will that don't know who you are, they'll know who you are very shortly. So I'm really excited to
Appreciate it.
follow you and continue to see you grow as an athlete and as a person.
Thank you. I just want to like remind you. I just want to be as humble as possible on this podcast. Like totally,
Yeah.
everything I said is just like as humble as I can be. Like I just thank all my coaches and all my parents, my siblings, everybody, my girlfriend, everybody. So
Yeah. Well, dude, yeah, I took it nothing but humble. Even when I try to ask you if you just destroy some people sometimes, you even humble in answering that. So there's no way it would be read any other way. And I think, yeah, you put the work in, man. And I think that, you have a great balance of confidence, but also a great balance of like you mentioned, is like, just take care of business. And I think that that's when you have that mentality, man, you are scary, when you just know you got to take care of business because 97% of kids don't have that mentality. Like there's always something or looking ahead or overlooking something. And yeah,
yeah,
you
you just gotta
sounded
make your
great.
goals. You just gotta make goals for yourself. Like I even have this thing right here. Like it's on my wall. I put it on my wall. It's my workout set. It says two-time New England champ. What will you do when nobody is watching? And I have a picture of my. I have the funeral picture of my dead coach on my wall, and that's one of his quotes. What will you do when nobody's watching? And that's what he always said. I mean, are you gonna get that workout in today, or are you just gonna sit on the couch? You know what I mean? You have to do stuff like you ever hear like those stories like you do like 1 minute plank and coach is like get down. And then like when he's not looking at people go on their knees, you know. It's just like, will you stay for that 1 minute off your knees? And what are you gonna do when no one's watching? And that's how people get better. Because no one's gonna stay on you that whole time. No one's gonna be there for you and watching you the whole time. And the second someone gets off, you can't just not do anything because you won't get better. That's just how it is. So.
Well, this was great, man. I really think you this time next year we're going to be talking to a national champion, and I'm super excited for that. So again, appreciate you coming on here, and anything we can do for you going forward, just ask us, and whatever we can do, we'll do. I really mean that. So from Beyond Podcast, I'm your host, Anthony Petralis, guys. Till next time.